Siberia is burning fiercely.
It's on fire. I love this.
On the 19th of July, a gas pipeline was blown up 3,000 kilometers from Moscow. The West is under attack.
Whoa, holy really shit.
Friends, the SBU carried out the special operation Web 2, destroying locomotives with hundreds of tanks and dozens of pieces of equipment.
That's actually green. Maybe it's a factory?
A factory? Take a look at what's there. We're screwed. God, SBU, don't stop. Ukraine is striking the Black Sea Fleet, the Pacific Fleet, oil refineries and military airfields. An oil refinery is burning in Kstovo, Russia.
A drone just now hit Kstovo, Lukoil, damn it. There it goes again. Between the barges.
Not a single Russian naval fleet can effectively hide from the formidable Maluika Sea drones and the highly effective SBU. We will thoroughly discuss all of these critical developments with the esteemed top analyst Alexander Demchenko right now. The special operation by the armed forces of Ukraine, SBU and GUR, continues. Gas pipelines have been blown up 3,000 kilometers from Moscow. Western Siberia is under attack. Ukraine is striking the Black Sea Fleet, the Pacific Fleet, oil refineries and military airfields. Last night, and still burning now, the oil refinery in Russian Kstovo is on fire. There are powerful explosions and fires there. This is a new phase of the war, and it is already being felt in Moscow. Moreover, at the end of this month, Germany is supplying Ukraine with secret superweapons missiles that can reach Moscow and St. Petersburg. Thousands of drones are attacking Russia, Moscow, and St. Petersburg, and this is only the beginning.
Oh,
Nights in Russia are truly like a war zone, a chaotic and intense environment.
here comes the second UAV. A lot of them are flying toward the city. It hit right on target. Oh, the second one. Take that.
Seriously, what is that? A drone, right?
That's it. Now the third one is on fire. Oh,
We have analyst Alexander Demchenko with us. Sasha, hello.
Hello, Dasha. Hello, everyone.
Sasha, here are the top news stories. The Germans said the missiles will arrive any day now and will be able to strike Moscow and St. Petersburg. A gas pipeline in Siberia has been blown up. Submarines have been attacked. I read about it. And the most interesting news, the one I liked, a symbolic collapse. Admiral Kuznetsov, Russia's only aircraft carrier, might be decommissioned and scrapped. What do you think?
I'll say that the catastrophe is only just beginning. We're at the very start of this path. For Putin, August will certainly be a black month, an absolutely black month. I told you last time that August would be the end for him. He's done for. Just look at what's happening. In just a few days, the situation has changed dramatically. The New York Times got the headline right, the cover, the front page. Putin ruined everything. Putin screwed up and made a mess for himself, you see. In the Kremlin, they're getting beaten up in the bathroom. What am I trying to say? That, of course, there will now be a massive attack on Russia and especially on Moscow. Ukraine will get those missiles, there will be strikes. But the most important thing, Dasha, and most likely Trump, who has decided to expropriate an extra $5 billion from Putin. Just now, the news came in that he plans to seize Putin's frozen assets. Trump will start and Europe will continue. There are 300 billion in Europe. So most likely, Trump will give has already given Ukraine the green light to strike Moscow, to hit decision-making centers with missiles. Now, out of nowhere, Patriots will start arriving from Norway and Germany. 3 units. Interesting. And who gave permission? Wasn't it the Americans? At the same time, Germany will transfer long-range missiles to Ukraine, which for a very long time, were prohibited. Attention! And who gave the green light for this, if not Washington? That's why Putin is now in for a series of the harshest surprises. The Ukrainian military, the armed forces of Ukraine, have already avenged that 1-year-old boy from Kherson by killing all those who took the life of that poor innocent child. I will probably remember for the rest of my life that image of the burned down arenates will always be before my eyes. All those people who killed have already gotten what they deserve. Now, there will be a very harsh response for absolutely everything, because this past week has shown everything Trump in the White House, all of Washington, and the Europeans that it's time to put an end to Putin. It's time to finish with Putin. Now, Siberia is burning, and there are explosions at gas pipelines. These are the pipelines that supply military units and military factories. We need to explain what these gas pipelines are. They are the lines that supply gas production, which in turn directly powers Russia's defense enterprise. They have been blown up. Dasha, just think about it. How far of the race do you have to go? How much do you have to push things for all of Siberia to be burning like this? And not for the first time. For there to be a NATO base in Azerbaijan, NATO bases in Finland, British and French armies in Ukraine. And after the ceasefire, which Ukraine is being forced toward armies from 28 NATO member countries, will enter Ukraine. You see, when I look at all this, I just have this realization. Either Vladimir Putin is a CIA agent and is simply handing over his country to America, or there's going to be a coup in the Kremlin very soon, maybe even starting in August. Because no one has ever given away Russia the way he's giving it away. No one has ever given away Russia like this, you understand? He's just giving everything away, absolutely everything. Putin fought to keep NATO bases away from Russia's borders, to make sure the minimum flight time to Russia was 7 minutes. Now it's already down to 2 minutes. NATO troops are already right on Russia's borders. The NATO army is already practically stationed right outside St. Petersburg. It surrounded it, you see. They're putting St. Petersburg under siege, blockading it. So what? And what then? So I think that in August we are facing not only the collapse of the Russian Federation's economy, the beginning of a major economic crisis. We're not only in for Trump's rampage, who will force Putin to bend over in a very indecent and unpleasant way, doubled over, in a humiliating position, but we're also facing a political catastrophe and a crisis in the Russian Federation. I think that a coup d'etat, maybe even a military one, carried out by a military junta, is not far off.
I'm curious, Sasha, our audience give this video a like, and in the comments write who you think will carry out this military coup. Like, comment, let's go. Sasha, who is even capable of this mission impossible of pulling this off?
I almost said Vladimir Rudolfovich Solovyov. Lately, he's been talking about Trump's lips quite a lot. He has some very strange fantasies. I don't know, Dasha, do you ever dream about Trump's lips? Personally, I don't. I don't know why Vladimir Solovyov dreams about them. He needs to be dreaming about Putin's ass and his lips. What do Trump's lips have to do with anything? There are some really strange fantasies going on there. But by the way, I can't help but think that Solovyov is a sleeper agent for Maliuk, a sleeper agent for the Ukrainian security services. He's supposed to wake up and destroy their main boss, the head of the mafia, Putin. Seriously, though, if we're being serious, what we've seen lately, I mean, the murder of Starovoyt, the Minister of Transport in Russia.
Yes.
This has changed everything completely. Now the Chemezov clan is going to be under fire, and in fact already is. This whole story with the RIT, when Putin sent a RIT, Rhode Island Novosti reported it, Peskov confirmed it, then Putin said he hadn't sent anything. Aria Novosti deleted the report, and Peskov hastily said Putin didn't send anything. And 9 officials, led by Chemezov named ministers, with Chemezov, the head of Rostec, and until recently one of Putin's closest allies, at the forefront, showed up at the funeral, making it clear that this was a blow to their clan, to Chemezov's clan, to the clan of that security official who opposes Patrushev and Sechin and speaks about the need for reconciliation, for a pause in the so-called war. This means that the hawks have set their sights on those so-called peacemakers. And now there's going to be a major showdown. At least half of the Russian elite will probably die off in the near future. And there will be major bloody infighting. And Putin will be killing, throwing people out of windows, imprisoning. He'll do whatever he wants now. And this Chemezov clan, I think these 9 ministers who voted with their feet and staged this kind of mini mutinya public humiliation of Putin and were directly protected by the Rotenbergs and Chemezov, whose transport revenue streams were seized today and transferred to the Kovalchuks and directly to Putin himself. Yes, putting all that money from the Russian Ministry of Transport straight into his own pocket. I think that now a massive purge will begin, and at least half of Russia's elite is currently under threat. And now, attention, the question is, who will get whom? Putin has already made the first move. Putin has struck a blow. Putin has struck a blow against certain Kremlin factions. Now, a blow will come from them. Now, the other side will strike back, so we will find out who will be left standing in the end. I think that now Putin will resort to absolutely repressive methods. The entire repressive apparatus, the whole Lubyanka, all the security forces will be mobilized. But another question is, who will stand against him? I suspect that there will now be very large-scale mass reprisals. It will simply be a bloodbath in Moscow, near the Kremlin. Will the entire Kremlin be turned upside down? I don't know, Dasha, whether we'll wake up to the news that tanks have entered Moscow, that Putin has lost communication, that the Kremlin is without power and surrounded, and that a military junta has seized power with the money of certain Russian oligarchs and certain Russian security officials. But it seems to me that there will now be very large purges in Moscow and a real bloodbath, because the board has been overturned, because Putin has done something that no one has done since the days of Stalin. There was an unspoken agreement right after Stalin not to destroy your own. Not to destroy your own. Putin decided to take everything and reshuffle it. The problem is that if these same people don't stop him now, don't neutralize him, don't dispose of him, and don't destroy him, however it may be, whether they send him off to a dacha, seal him up in a bunker, in a portable toilet, or remove him, whatever it takes. If they don't deal with him now, he will simply destroy them all. So now we are watching Russia very closely. There are going to be major showdowns there, a big bloody mess in Moscow in the near future.
Sasha, there was a very interesting story when for 3 days in a row we attacked Moscow and St. Petersburg with drones. After that, Russian war correspondents wrote that they had information that Ukraine was preparing a strike with 1,000 drones on Moscow and St. Petersburg. Then Nevzorov reported that Moscow's air defense system Pantsir had started attacking a civilian airplane. This information hasn't been confirmed, but it appeared, and they are jamming communications, jamming the internet. And here's the main question. Could Putin stage a terrorist attack in Moscow or St. Petersburg? And could they shoot down their own plane? And why are they jamming communications? And could this also be a trigger for certain turbulence or terrorist attacks organized by Putin himself or the FSB?
They are jamming communications, Boswell. Everyone thinks they're fighting against unmanned aerial vehicles, against drones this way. In reality, they are jamming communications so that all of Moscow and all the big cities know and see nothing at all. These are obvious things. It's clear that this jamming doesn't really help them much. That's the first point. The second point, as for this particular strike, we've talked for a long time about the passenger plane, the Belarusian one, by the way. Dasha, we've discussed for a long time the fact that Vladimir Putin and his agencies, the security forces, the FSB, Lubyanka, and others are preparing a series of mass terrorist attacks on the territory of Moscow. This signal, when the drone fell at Vnukovo, in the yard near Vnukovo airport, when people were kept waiting, not allowed to leave, and the carpet plan was in effect, they weren't allowed outside the airport, not even outside the ground. That is not just outside the terminals, the entire grounds. So what we're saying is that, yes, a terrorist attack is most likely being prepared, probably targeting airports. Most likely, all these key airports like Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Zhukovsky, Vnukovo, Pulkovo are under significant threat. Most likely, yes, they are planning to destroy a passenger plane on their own territory, preferably a foreign one. They destroyed the Azerbaijani plane and tried to pin it on someone else. It didn't work. Now, they tried to pin it on the Belarusian plane. It didn't work either. They're preparing some kind of series of sabotage acts, provocations, blowing up planes, destroying them, shooting them down, destroying airports, like when one of their anti-missiles falls on an airport, taking the lives of thousands of people. All this is to blame Ukraine, to escalate the war, to intensify the situation, to force everything and cancel contract-based mobilization, switching the army to a conscription-based unpaid system. There's no reason to pay the cannon fodder anymore, as they've already calculated in the Kremlin. They really don't have any money. They don't have money to keep the war and defense going in the current mode until the end of this year. Next comes the choice. Either give money to their own people or send these people as cannon fodder for free, thereby risking their own regime. But at the same time, still paying their security forces, because Vladimir Putin's regime is built on the security forces. That's the second point. Third, when he struck the Belarusian plane, you know what I thought, Dasha? And in fact, this is a kind of signal to Lukashenko. We could wake up one fine day, and for no apparent reason, Russian air defense forces, anti-missile systems could just strike, especially in Belarus, not just at the Belarusian plane, but at the plane of the head of state, at Lukashenko himself. Lukashenko doesn't want to fly directly, doesn't want to directly help Putin in the war. Well, what do you mean by help? To openly enter the war. He doesn't want to send his army against Ukraine or directly against the Baltic countries. Yes, he allows Putin's German drones to be sent through his territory to the Lithuanian border, where they explode right before reaching Lithuania. But he doesn't want to take too many risks. He doesn't want to risk it because he understands that as soon as Putin starts some kind of war with his help, Lukashenko will be ousted. Lukashenko, his family, his inner circle, they will lose all their money, all their property, and no one will help. He won't have time to escape to Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates or China, where he's been moving his money lately. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if Putin threatens Lukashenko like that. Recently, we discussed a very strange, rather odd coincidence, right? When the Azerbaijani plane was shot down, and at the same time, the plane of Azerbaijan's leader, Ilham Aliyev, was taking off. Now we have another interesting situation. A Belarusian Planezo, is this a signal to Lukashenko or not? Basically, is this a signal that says, you have a plane too, I can shoot it down, so are you going to join me in the war or not? This is really interesting. Moreover, I was thinking that Lukashenko, just like everyone else, like Shoigu, like Gerasimov, like Patrushev, who was removed, like Kadyrov, who it's unclear what happened to him, whether he was poisoned or just got sick. It's the same story, right? Like, for example, General Surovikin, who had all his kidneys, his liver, his lungs beaten, yes, his ribs broken, and was sent to Africa. Then his wife barely managed to save him from the basement. And so on down the list, General Spartak. All those people who were involved in the Prigozhin affair have in one way or another been disposed of. Shoigu, for example, is now under threat after Surovikin. I think he will be next, or General Gerasimov will be next. One of them will be executed publicly in the near future. But all these people who were involved in the Prigozhin affair in one way or another, whether on the opposing side or supporting Prigozhin, they have all been disposed of, neutralized in one way or another. Only Lukashenko remains. I think that now Putin will actively go after Alexander Lukashenko. And this is not beneficial for Ukraine right now, because this is exactly where Ukraine does not need Putin to install his own official Gauleiter in Belarus, some lieutenant colonel or colonel, another security officer, who would then directly orchestrate the entire war from that territory. This is something that nobody needs, not Ukraine, not Europe, not NATO, not America. And it's not for nothing. It's not for nothing that Kellogg visited Belarus. It's not for nothing that he held talks with Lukashenko. Apparently, they are trying to dissuade Lukashenko from siding with Vladimir Putin and with China. And finally, regarding drones, everyone missed an important piece of news. I believe this is actually the most important news of the week. The US Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, appeared. He recorded a video. The video was widely circulated. Pete Hegseth and a drone flying nearby.
Oh, yes.
Did you see it, right? Everyone was laughing, but the key thing wasn't what was shown, but what he actually said. So what did the US Secretary of Defense say? First, the US will be the world's key country, the most powerful country when it comes to drones. The US is becoming a drone nation. Second, 3 additional huge drone testing grounds are being opened in America. And third, the most important thing, for the US, small drones are now considered munitions, just ordinary ammunition. This means they are not counted, that they can be used and replenished, and well, so to speak, they are not considered a separate type of weapon. In other words, they can be written off without issue. It doesn't matter how many strikes you make, how many of these drones you use. What does this mean in practice? That Ukraine will eventually receive millions of these drones. Millions! And as you asked, thousands of drones will fly toward Moscow. Tens of thousands of drones will be flying all over Russia. There is no other option. Right now, Vladimir Putin, with the help of the Chinese and North Koreans, is receiving artillery shells. Just recently, South Korea reported that, if I'm not mistaken, North Korea has already sent Putin 12 million artillery shells. China is building a factory in the Khabarovsk region, or I think it may have already been built, to produce drones. Thousands of drones, right? So right now, there is no other option except for the US to send these drones to Ukraine to become the most powerful drone country, America. I mean, and to give Ukraine the opportunity to test these modern new American technologies on Russia. So I think that Ukraine will get everything it needs, not only long-range missiles, but also drones. And of course, Moscow will be set ablaze, Moscow and all the other key centers, including decision-making centers.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Dear audience, top analyst Sasha Demchenko and I work together twice a week on Tuesdays and Sundays. Our format is Dasha plus Sasha, Sasha plus Dasha. Let us know in the comments what you think about our tandem. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to Dmitry Gordon's YouTube channel where Alexander Demchenko appears, and in the comments, write what you personally expect from the drone and missile war. A very important topic that I would like to focus on, Sasha, is that the US is no longer restricting strikes, and that Germany has officially confirmed that as early as July, Ukraine received long-range missiles capable of destroying airfields, headquarters, and depots on Russian territory. Now, for example, a refinery in the Krasnodar region has been blown up, a gas pipeline in Khanty-Mansi Autonomous Okrug, the Black Sea and Pacific fleets have been attacked, and the Admiral Kuznetsov is being scrapped. When we talk about this, Ukraine is now gaining an advantage, especially considering what Trump said on Monday. I will make a decision that will bring defeat to Russia. He hinted at this. What do you think?
I think the board has been flipped over. When the Chancellor of Germany says that the time for diplomacy is over, it means they've bet on war, they're ready to fight. That is for the first time in the past 6 months, or I would say in the past 3.5 years. Because for 3.5 years, the bet was on containing Russia. They thought they could come to an agreement with Putin, persuade him, appease him, and conduct some parallel negotiations. There were various iterations. Biden had his own approach. Trump had his own, each had their own format. The Europeans, it's unclear what they were thinking all this time. But now the bet has been placed on war. They are ready to encircle Putin, to twist him up like a ball, right? That's why things are going to get very tough for Putin now. And it's not for nothing that Lavrov requested urgent talks with Rubio. It's not for nothing that they had 2 conversations on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Malaysia. It's not for nothing that Putin has minimized strikes on Ukraine. It's not for nothing that Kyiv Kellogg is going directly to Kyiv, and according to some reports, will be in Kyiv for an entire week. So we're seeing a completely different reaction. Well, because Putin has won everyone out. Because when you brazenly, on US Independence Day, slap the American president in the face with wet underwear, just expect that tons of urine will be poured right back in your face. That's all there is to it. That's what we just witnessed. That's what we're going to see in the near future. No one is going to stand on ceremony with Putin anymore. As for the Admiral Kuznetsov, that was the only Russian aircraft carrier, and it was under repair for an absurdly long number of years. And in Russia, they honestly admitted we are not capable of repairing it. Why can't they repair it? Here's the question. There are no spare parts, no capabilities, no professional engineers. Sanctions have eaten it all up. And most notably, there's no money. There's no money for these insanely expensive aircraft carriers. But what about those plans to build several aircraft carriers, carrier groups, to catch up with America? And what about all that talk that we're supposedly overtaking China? Let's get ourselves some carrier groups. There won't be any more carrier groups in Russia. And there won't be any more aircraft carriers in Russia either. Are you going to fight with barges? That's it. Are you going to hold watermelons on those barges? There won't be anything else. Nothing. Everything is being scrapped. Everything is being scrapped. Yes, if it weren't for the Chinese, North Koreans, and Iranians, Russia would have long since fallen to its knees and begged for mercy. Well, maybe not for mercy, but in any case, to be serious, it would have gone and signed a peace agreement. China is helping, the North Koreans are helping, Iran isn't helping us much anymore. They've already seen what Vladimir Putin's words are worth, as he now brazenly wants to take Iran's nuclear technology and move it to Russia. That's the kind of peacemaker he is. How about we give Iran another Budapest memorandum, Putin style? You see what I mean? We'll take the nuclear technology, move it to Moscow, to the Kremlin, so he can have another red button, or so that red button gets even bigger. But anyway, Dasha, all of this shows that Putin doesn't have any money. There's already a 4 trillion hole in the budget. They say that if Trump imposes sanctions, the hole will be 7.5 trillion. That's an enormous amount of money. Moreover, Gazprom has $1 trillion in debt, it's bankrupt. All of Russia's key enterprises are bankrupt. Bankrupt. Every third car dealer in Russia is out of business. A third of taxi drivers in Russia are already out of work. The mortgage market has dropped exactly threefold. The mortgage market has dropped exactly threefold. Putin has burned through $350 billion, already 15% of his economy. Devastating sanctions will take out 30 to 40% of his economy. Oil production in Russia has dropped by 30 to 35%, and there's no revenue in the budget. What are we even talking about? What are we talking about? Putin has no money, but he still needs to feed his security forces. And what does that mean? First, it means he will start cutting. He won't give out money. He won't pay his cannon fodder. That's the first thing. Second, this means that Vladimir Putin will simply reshuffle his entire top echelon, shake up his inner circle, and redirect financial flows to his own family and close associates, taking these flows away from his oligarchs. Just recently, they took a gold miner, one of the most important Russian oligarchs, and stripped him of his Euro-based gold mining enterprise. They're already taking the gold, they're already taking the agriculture. What are we even talking about? Putin doesn't have any money. He has to find this money somewhere. He needs to get this money from somewhere. And he's going to take this money from the Russian people. That's all there is to it. So this whole mess will be over soon. If Trump, not just in words, but in action, puts Putin in a really tough spot, the war will end soon. Right now, Trump has the power to change everything and turn the whole board over. I hope that the board will be completely overturned. And right now, Putin is very scared. He has finally realized that he went too far and that it was a mistake.
Sasha, I want us to also spend the last 5 to 8 minutes talking about Trump. But before that, there's an important topic, the Kerch Bridge, the Crimean Bridge, occupied Crimea. This is very important considering that now the Germans will provide us, as I understand it, with funding. We've produced our own weapons and so on, and it will be ready by the end of this month. Will the new weapons strike the Kerch Bridge, or will it be Taurus missiles, Storm Shadow, or long-range Neptunes? And will we be able to damage the Kerch Bridge enough for it to be a very serious political and military blow to Putin?
Listen, the destruction of the Kerch, or Crimea, bridge is inevitable. Anything that is unsightly, that doesn't fit the architectural design, that was built according to Stalinist blueprints, must be destroyed and will be destroyed. You see, Dasha, here's the thing. There is no other option but to drive out the Russian Black Sea Fleet, Russian bases, and Russian military from the territory of occupied Crimea. As soon as Putin loses Crimea, or everyone realizes that Crimea is under threat, this regime will immediately collapse. Everyone is well aware of this. Yes. So when he is now moving anti-missile weapons, air defense systems, and so on from the list, from the Donbas, which he and his criminal troops have occupied to the territory of the Crimean Peninsula, he is showing everyone two things. First, that he's short on weapons, and second, that Crimea is the most important thing for him among all the occupied Ukrainian territories, aside from the whole of Ukraine itself. But the British have already written that he would have to wait 99 or 100 years, and he won't live that long. That's obvious. I think his family, they'll poison him with those little pills and keep him alive. Next, you see, and this also shows that he doesn't care at all about the occupied territories or about any of those people. He's willing to sacrifice these people in Donbass and so on, in all the occupied territories of Ukraine, just to keep Crimea. And a strike on Crimea, a strike on that bridge, these are absolutely inevitable things. The bridge will fall, the bridge will be destroyed. Mariuk is already on it. Last time he calculated, we discussed it with you, 200, 4,200, right? 4,200, that's the explosives. Well, fine, they calculated. 4,200 didn't work. So next time, it'll be 10, maybe 100,000. That's all there is to it. They all already have plans over there. None of this is happening by accident. Have you noticed that not a single Western representative from Washington to Brussels to London has said anything about the Crimean Bridge, the explosions, the strikes on Crimea, and so on? This means that everyone is agreeing to everything. There are no more restrictions. All restrictions have been lifted. There will be strikes. German missiles, French missiles, British missiles, and American missiles. Everything will be used. It will hit the occupied territories, it will hit the Kerch Bridge, and it will hit Moscow. Everything, every place where decisions are made, from where strikes are launched, everything will be burned. There is no other option here. And Vladimir Putin is to blame for this. This is what Russian officials and Russian citizens need to understand. Vladimir Putin is the reason for everything. And the New York Times is absolutely right when it wrote, Putin ruined everything. The good times are over. There is no more romance, no more honeymoon period, or whatever you want to call it. It's over. The bride has left. For Putin, this is where it all ends.
So the question is, who isn't the bride in this tandem? Sasha, let's figure it out. Trump or Putin?
Well, Trump acted like the bride for quite a while, but then apparently he decided to switch roles a bit. Now Putin is the troublemaker, not the bride.
So a few words about the bride Trump. So tomorrow, on Monday, Trump will be making a statement. Very important, really, is the information that Keith Kellogg will be in Kyiv all this week. And now the question, will Putin attack Kyiv while Keith Kellogg is in Ukraine? Will Putin attack Ukraine, master, to show Trump's bride that he meant him? And then what? How might Trump react? This is very interesting and very important. Sasha, the floor is yours.
Dasha, as we're speaking right now, I don't know how Trump will react. I don't know if Putin will start shooting while Kellogg is in Kyiv. I hope no, because if he's insane and if he wants Trump to twist his arm and to strike against the backdrop of Trump's speech, if he does it again, like if he did it on the 4th of July, he could do it again, but that would be his last strike, his last laugh, and his last moment of ecstasy, you see? This will be the last time Putin smiles, because after that, Trump, if there were any escape routes left, no one will be holding anyone back anymore. Neither Trump will restrain Congress, nor Congress will restrain Trump. But right now, the most important news just came in while we were talking. The SBU has eliminated the killers who murdered the security service colonel in Kyiv. The people resisted. They put up armed resistance, fired shots, they had grenades with them, and they were neutralized and eliminated. I don't know, Dasha, what ultimatum Trump will present to Vladimir Putin. I don't know what will happen on the 14th. I don't know, and no one knows what's going on in Trump's head. But I know for sure that right now an ultimatum has effectively been issued by Malyuk. And I understand that there will now be a very tough response from Malyuk, from the SBU, from the Ukrainian Special Services, from Ukrainian intelligence for this murder, for the murder of the 1-year-old boy in Kherson, and for the strike on the maternity hospital in Kharkiv. I don't know what must be going on in the minds of these scoundrels who give the orders and fire at maternity hospitals where women are giving birth. First it was Odessa, now it's Kharkiv. Recently, they've already started hitting maternity hospitals. In other words, there will be accountability for everything, for 11 hours of strikes on Kyiv, for Lutsk, for Lviv, and so on down the list. There will be a major response. No one is going to tolerate this anymore. We've discussed for a long time whether there will be Web 2.0. I don't know if there will be Web 2.0, but right now it's more likely there will be a very tough strike. A harsh response against Moscow, against decision-making centers. I think that Malyuk has, in fact, just now, before our eyes, issued his ultimatum. And I think that Trump will also announce his ultimatum on the 14th. And honestly, whether Trump announces something or not, it doesn't really matter to us. It's not that we don't care. It just doesn't make much difference. Yes.
I wish everyone good health. Just a few words to comment on one event. This morning, the security service of Ukraine carried out the detention of an FSB of Russia agent combat group who had been sent in advance to Ukraine and 3 days ago committed the murder of an SBU officer, Colonel Ivan Ivanovich Voronich, our esteemed comrade. As a result of covert investigative and active counterintelligence measures, the enemy hideout was discovered, and in the morning, active operations were carried out to detain them. They began to resist, there was an exchange of gunfire, and they were neutralized. I want to remind you that there is only one prospect for the enemy on the territory of Ukraine, and that is accordingly death. In addition, I want to thank the employees of the Criminal Investigation Department for their professionalism and support.
The head of the Security Service of Ukraine made a statement. Please, dear audience, we have shown this as it unfolds. Sasha, please.
Yes, Dasha. What I'm saying is, first of all, this is already a clear, unmistakable signal from Malyuk that there will be a response, and a very tough one, specifically in Moscow. I think that in Moscow, they understand this perfectly well. Secondly, regarding Trump, to continue this topic. Look, I don't know what Donald Trump will say, but whatever he says now, we are already seeing it in action. The green light has been given. All obstacles have been completely removed. Missiles are on their way. Drones will follow. And not just a few millions of drones, dozens of missiles, hundreds of missiles will be launched. And there will be strikes. This is already inevitable. This is already a reality. It doesn't matter how Trump will use the money. The money will go, patriots will go, shells, ammunition, missiles, weapons, everything will go. There are no more illusions in Washington regarding Vladimir Putin. There are no illusions that Vladimir Putin might agree to peace. He will be forced to. And most likely, he will be forced this year. And maybe even sooner than we can imagine.
Sasha, to sum up, a very important topic is actually the statement that for the first time since taking office, Trump is considering the possibility of allocating new funding for Ukraine. According to CBS News, this is $3.85 billion from the authorities that remain with the Trump-Biden administration. Moreover, Trump, as you mentioned at the very beginning, could allocate new funding to Ukraine, $5 billion from frozen Russian assets. But here's the main point. Is this the maximum, or will the Senate still pass by the end of July the bill on severe secondary sanctions against Russia, meaning sanctions on all countries that buy energy resources and raw materials from Russia?
The sanctions will be adopted with Trump's amendments directly. Trump will have in his hands the tools and mechanisms with which he can put pressure on China, India, and a number of other countries that purchase from Russia or directly help Russia carry out black market schemes and the transfer of dual-use goods, both military and civilian, into Russia and so on. In other words, the flows will be shut down, the shadow fund will be closed. For the most part, it will be closed. I assume they'll loosen the valves a bit in America and Saudi Arabia, and they'll deliberately crash the oil price. What else is very important, Dasha? So that's regarding the sanctions. There will be sanctions. There's no need to worry here. There will be sanctions. Trump will have the authority, Congress will approve everything, and so on. There will be sanctions. As for weapon systems, we need to understand that Trump has crossed a certain Rubicon. This was a red line for him. He didn't want to cross that line. He didn't want to send anything. He had already tried. He called Vladimir Putin 6 times. Nothing worked out. He proposed a meeting to Putin. Nothing worked out. He sent envoys to Putin, including official representatives, the Secretary of State, at that time also the head of his Security Council and his intelligence officers. He sent absolutely everyone. Nothing worked out. No thing. When we now discuss the issue of providing weapons to Ukraine, because Trump, in parallel to Biden's package, is also allocating hundreds of millions of dollars to Ukraine from his own side. He is sending one Patriot system himself. Norway and Germany, after coordinating with Trump, are sending another 2 or 3 Patriot systems. This is very expensive weapon. This is the kind of weapon that recently saved Israel and will save Israel more than once in the future. So now we are talking about a very important component. Donald Trump, the president of America, has crossed a red line for himself. He has crossed the Rubicon. We are talking about the fact that for the first time, Trump began providing Ukraine with very expensive weapon systems, very costly weaponry. This is just the beginning, and it is extremely important. In other words, this step has been taken. From now on, he will not turn back from this path. And this will directly affect the entire war, the course of hostilities, not in Putin's favor. Once again, friends, finally, the board has been flipped. Now everything is in Trump's hand. But one more very important point. No one is going to play games with Putin anymore. And Putin finds himself in a very difficult, I would even say, stalemate situation. August will be a black month for Russia and for Putin.
And we are getting closer to it. A brilliant analysis from Alexander Demchenko. Friends, our tandem Sasha plus Dasha works twice a week on my YouTube channel Dasha Shaslivaya, that's Tuesday and Sunday, and on the Mitro Gordon's YouTube channel Wednesday and Monday. So watch us, give us a like, write a few kind words about our tandem. It means a lot. We work for an audience all over the world so that they know the truth about Russian aggression. Sasha, thank you so much, and see you this Tuesday.
See you next time. Bye.